to present to you Detox, our exposure to toxins. Let's start with the definition of environmental toxins. Environmental toxins are poisonous substances that come from outside of the body and can be lumped into two categories: chemicals and metals. What we're not talking about in this presentation is biochemical toxins, which are things like mold and LPS. We will talk about that in a different presentation. So does your body have toxins? The question isn't any longer if we have toxins. The real question is, how much toxins do we have? Let's talk about the definition and source of toxic burden. Toxic burden is the total accumulation of toxin that the body's dealing with. And these toxins come from a variety of sources, but initial exposure actually begins when the baby is still in the womb. There are chemicals, pollutants, and pesticides in umbilical cord blood. That means your baby is exposed to it right away. 287 chemicals were detected in the umbilical cord blood of newborns. 180 of this 287 chemicals were found to cause cancer in humans or animals. 217 are toxic to the brain and nervous system, and 208 were shown to cause birth defects or abnormal development in animal tests. What this tells us is that we are exposed to so many toxins that we can't avoid, but there are some that we can avoid, and we really want to do that. And so we're going to talk about the ones we can identify and avoid. Now remember, this study was done in 2005. It is now 2022, which means that there is a lot more chemicals that have been discovered and created between now and then. I wish I could say that we've cleaned up our act, but we haven't. So just think of all the chemicals that we're now being exposed to that we haven't even identified yet. And we're going to talk about some of them in detail. Throughout our daily life, we're in constant contact with environmental toxins, leading to health concerns in a variety of areas. So where are they coming from? The CDC's fourth National Report on Human Exposure to Environmental Toxins tested 212 chemicals and found all to be in the blood and urine of most Americans. 6 chemicals in particular were found in virtually every person and were identified by the CDC as probable health hazards. Let's start with flame retardants. Flame retardants can often be found in pajamas because that is something, if you have a fire, you want to be able to get out. So without your clothes going up in flames. It's really important, and I understand that. But the problem is they're really toxic. And flame retardants, also called PDEs, are known to build up in human fat tissue, which a lot of toxins actually are in fat tissue. And that's because the body is brilliant and will keep our bodies protected from the toxins, from them attacking other cells by storing it in fat cells. This causes damages to the nervous system, the liver, and the kidneys. Studies also implicate PDEs in causing sexual dysfunction, thyroid problems, and brain disorders. We are at an all-time high of thyroid disorders, which is why it's one of the most important things I test for when I do a biocomprehensive blood work. Bisphenol A is, you see BPA everywhere. What you see is BPA free. BPA is bisphenol A, and it's found in plastic products, can linings, and food packaging. More than 90% of people tested by the CDC were found to have BPA in their bodies, and BPA is a reproductive, developmental, and systemic toxin. It's reproductive. It means it can contribute to breast cancer and prostate cancer. It's developmental because it can impair growth or cause too much growth of cells. And it's a systemic toxin, meaning it can affect all the systems of the body. BPA is something we want to avoid, and BPA free is another thing we want to avoid because it is just another chemical that just hasn't been tested yet. Now, plastics are an amazing thing and we cannot get away from them, but we can reduce our exposure and we can be more cognizant of where we're getting BPAs. So the plastic water bottles that are able to, like, when you suck it down, it actually crinkles. That's a really soft plastic. The softer the plastic, the more BPAs. So you want like something with a really hard plastic is a better thing to use, but you never want to microwave them because then the plastics get into your food and that's a no. Let's go on to PFOAs. This is that Teflon coating in nonstick pans. I love an egg that doesn't stick to my pan. But this nonstick coating is really toxic. It's used in nonstick cookware, stain-resistant clothing, certain food packaging, and other heat-resistant products. Studies verify that PFOA contributes to infertility and other reproductive problems. There's a lot of women having a really hard time getting pregnant these days. These are the chemicals that are contributing. Liver and immune system dysfunction are also associated with PFOAs. What are some alternatives? Our glass and stainless steel are great alternatives, and also ceramic is a really good alternative to a pan. Green Pan has some ceramic pans that are great. Acrylamide. Acrylamide is a chemical carcinogen formed when carbohydrate foods are cooked at high temperatures. French fries, fried chicken, coffee, sorry to say, all have a high acrylamide content. Also used in plastics, cosmetics, and water treatment products. It's a perpetual exposure linked to cancer and neurological dysfunction. We have so much cancer that it's almost like people are getting it so frequently, it's almost like a rite of passage, like diabetes and heart disease. That is not acceptable, and we need to prevent cancer. It's a scary diagnosis that no one wants. So when you are frying up foods that have high carbohydrates, then you are more at risk to one of these chemicals, such as acrylamide. Mercury is our next toxin. Mercury is the most common exposure route is seafood, but specifically the bigger fish that collect more toxins. Like albacore tuna is not as good a choice as like skipjack tuna, which is a smaller fish. Sardines are even better because they're even smaller and they don't accumulate as many toxins, specifically mercury. And mercury can cause brain damage and other neurological dysfunction. We've linked it to MS and ALS and Parkinson's. So heavy metals really affect the brain. And mercury can also be found in those silver amalgams in the teeth because that is one of the components. So you always want to get something that is mercury free if you have a cavity and you need to get it filled, especially in children. The next one is Methylturbutyl Ether, and it's a gasoline additive, but it's no longer used in the US since 1993. But it is currently detected in most American bodies because it's found in some water sources, mainly in urban areas that have leaking underground gasoline storage tanks. It's leaking out and it's getting to the water system, and then people are getting affected. You know, we didn't know that there was a problem until there was a problem in all these different communities. Like Flint didn't know that there was a lead problem until they realized there was a lead problem. And there's different places. There's a place in Wisconsin that has had a lot of brain cancer, and they're looking at environmental toxins from that. You don't know what the problem is until you do. And so you want to be cognizant and clean up your environment as soon as you identify them. Because this particular thing, found also in secondhand smoke, can cause neurological and reproductive problems. Keep in mind, this only describes 6 toxic compounds of the 212 tested and found in most Americans. Cleansing and detoxification, which we're going to be doing now, are highly effective at continually ridding the body of toxic buildup. How do you know if the toxins you've been exposed to are causing your health problems? Let's talk about that. So symptoms of excessive toxic burden are fatigue, depression, brain fog, memory issues, brain problems, balance problems, tremors, and headaches. And there's other ones too. People have noticed that they have like a tingling sensation. That is an indication of toxic burden. And of course, these are not just from toxic burden. You can have fatigue from blood sugar imbalances, from anemias. Like there's a lot of things that can cause fatigue. There's a lot of things that can cause depression, a lot of things that can cause brain fog. But these are symptoms that also can be an indicator of toxic burden. Other conditions and diseases associated with excessive toxic burden are allergies and asthma, diabetes, obesity. Remember, the body's brilliant and wants to keep the body from being harmed by all these toxins, so it will store it in fat, which means it will accumulate fat in order to store these toxins. Chemical sensitivity, fibromyalgia, fertility problems, and birth defects. There's a lot of research about it. There's exposure to dioxins and type 2 diabetes. We are finding dioxin promotes type 2 diabetes in humans. Dioxin containing Agent Orange herbicide, which is Roundup. Dioxins are also present in farm-raised fish, dairy products, and beef. It is important to note that the things that you're using to destroy weeds on your lawn are toxic to you and your family. And so you want to avoid using them and use more natural means, because these can not only be in the air, but you can track it in with your shoes. And if you have kids or pets on it, it's harmful to them as well. Exposure to heavy metal toxicants is almost unavoidable in today's world. We find it through food, groundwater, industrial waste, exposure to industrial environments. What can you do about it? That is all that we're going to do, is deal with what we know is out there and help clean up our bodies. We're going to reduce our exposure by being aware, and we're going to detox our body to get rid of what we have. We're going to reduce our exposure. We're going to use chemical-free products in our home: soaps, detergents, cleansing products, dryer sheets, natural insect and weed killers. We're going to take off our shoes before entering the house to avoid tracking in chemicals from the outside. We're going to reduce exposure of chlorine by attaching filters to our shower heads. Chloroform is released when chlorinated water is heated. We want to avoid that kind of toxin. And we want to avoid personal products with phthalates and parabens that can be found in shampoos, conditioners, and other cosmetics. 90% of our toxin exposure to certain chemicals, such as PCBs and dioxins, actually come from the food we eat. 35% of all the foods we purchase in the United States supermarkets have measurable pesticide residues, which make their way into our bodies. To reduce our exposure via pesticides and herbicides on our food, avoid eating fruits and vegetables on the dirty dozen list. Choose organic substitutes for these foods. And those sheets will be found either on the website down below or in your guidebook. Here's the dirty dozen list. High in pesticides, you need to buy these organic. And they change every year and they're monitored by the Environmental Working Group, which is www.ewg.org. Strawberries, spinach, kale, collard greens, mustard greens, nectarines, apples, grapes, cherries, peaches, pears, bell peppers, celery, and tomatoes are all fruits and vegetables that you should get organic in order to not have the pesticide exposure that can be a toxin for you and your family. There's also the Clean 15. These are the lowest in pesticides and are okay to eat conventionally grown. Avocado, sweet corn, pineapple, onions, papaya, frozen peas, eggplant, asparagus, broccoli, cabbage, kiwi, cauliflower, mushrooms, honeydew melon, and cantaloupe. And remember, they do new lists every year. So this list is the 2021, and by now they might have the 2022 already out. So go to ewg.org or check your latest guidebook. Reduce your exposure to toxins in food and drink. Conventionally raised meat and dairy products have consistently been tested and found to have the highest levels of hormone disrupting chemicals in them. That's because when you have cows that you want to produce milk, you're going to increase their hormone production by giving them exogenous hormones to make them produce more milk. Same with chickens to produce more eggs. 25 million pounds of antibiotics a year are fed to livestock, and the animal feed, which is highly sprayed with chemicals as well. So having commercial food that is high in pesticides and high in antibiotics is really harmful. So you want to get organic when you can. Animal feed contains high quantities of fat, which allows for the storage of these fat-soluble chemicals. Remember, we talked about that. They are then passed on into the human digestive system in the body when you eat these products. So choose free-range, hormone, antibiotic-free, RTH-free, dairy, meat, and eggs whenever possible. Eggs are little hormone bombs, so you definitely want to get those organic. Choose fresh, cold water fish in place of farm raised. So you want wild, fresh, cold water fish whenever possible. When possible, eat organic, and always wash all produce very well before eating, peeling, or cooking. We're going to continue to reduce our exposure by using stainless steel or glass drinking containers, not plastic. Reduce or eliminate all plastic utensils, drinking containers, plates, and storage containers. Store food in non-plastic containers and bags when possible. If you are like me and you grew up where your mom put all leftovers in cool containers, and if she put tomato sauce in it, you would see that red ring would be permanent in that cooler container. That's because the acid from citric or acidic foods like tomatoes eats away at the plastic and actually pulls the plastic into your food. So that's a no. Never microwave your food in plastic containers. Once again, the plastic breaks down and gets into your food. And perfumes. You really want to avoid perfumes because perfumes have a proprietary blend that they do not have to share what chemicals are in them and how dangerous they are. What else can you do? We can clean out our bodies. Detoxification is simply normalizing the body's ability to process and excrete toxins. The body is already brilliant at cleaning out toxins. We're going to help it as we temporarily reduce the amount of incoming toxins. Factors that can negatively affect how well you excrete toxins: if you have a genetic inability to make folic acid into methylated folate, that is something we look for. And if that's a problem, then we will help support you in the detoxification process by giving you methylated folate. Environmental exposure is another thing that can negatively affect the way you excrete toxins. Unhealthy diet and lifestyle. We're cleaning that up right now. Slow bowel function. We want to make sure you're having a bowel movement every day in order to get those toxins out of the body. And if you're not, you need to talk to me so we can make sure that we do whatever we need to do to make sure that happens. If you have toxins in your bowel and you're not moving them through your body, they're just going to reabsorb. And we don't want that because we don't want the liver to have to work extra hard to get rid of those toxins a second time or a third time. This creates a buildup of toxins in the body, leading to an increase in toxic burden. Eventually, this sets the stage for toxicity symptoms and disease. So how do you know if you need to detoxify? We already talked about some issues, but generalized muscle aches, difficulty concentrating, general fatigue, food allergies, chemical sensitivities, fibromyalgia, and chronic fatigue. If you have irritability, headaches, lethargy, fatigue, weakness, abdominal pain, tremors, or even those electric feelings or what's it called? Tingling. That's the word I was looking for, tingling. Kidney distress, elevated liver enzymes. These are all symptoms you might have a heavy metal toxicity. The first thing you're going to do, or you may have already done, is take our detoxification questionnaire. That will give you an idea of how exposed you are to environmental toxins. And the body's detoxification pathways are really important to know about. So we're going to talk about that. How it works in a healthy liver. When everything's working just fine, then toxins, which are fat soluble, are transferred from the intestines to the liver. In the liver, the toxins undergo phase 1 detoxification to neutralize certain toxins. Not all of them, but some of them. The remainder of the unneutralized toxins move into phase 2 detoxification, which then transforms the remainder into water-soluble compounds. Newly transformed toxins are then transferred to either the kidneys, where they're excreted in the urine, or to the gallbladder, where they are excreted in the feces. In an unhealthy liver, toxins are unable to be detoxified at the speed at which they're brought into the liver. In these cases, toxins build up and recirculate in the blood, contributing to long-term poor health, because then they can damage more cells around the area. These unneutralized fat-soluble toxins can be stored in body tissues, such as fat, the brain, and the nervous system, causing systemic symptoms and future disease processes. Remember, your brain is mostly fat, which is why a lot of these symptoms are neurological, because if they store the fat is in your brain and along your nervous system, because your nerves are coated with something called myelin, which is a fatty sheet. More actions to take: get a water filtration system. I love the ones that are 3 canisters underneath the sink because they're very thorough, but I like even more a whole house filtration system. If you have questions, you can ask me because I have one. Eat whole, clean foods. Have at least 1 bowel movement a day, and walk daily. The program that we utilize is well researched of nutrients, vitamins, and herbs to balance and support the body's detoxification pathways. It will also support your body's ability to excrete toxins once they've been neutralized, thus reducing the chance that they'll recirculate and be stored in the body. How do you get started? Once again, you're going to fill out that detoxification questionnaire and you're going to score yourself. And you're either going to have mild symptoms, which the 10-day cleanse is great. And if you have severe symptoms, then I'd suggest increasing it to 21 days or 28 days. The Supercharged Cleanse is my particular proprietary program, which is where you eat 1 serving of protein, 2 servings of veggies every 3 to 4 hours in a 12-hour or less time frame. You take certain supplements that will help with the detoxification program, help balance blood sugar, help with GI detox, and help control cravings. And making sure you're having a really good amount of sleep. 8 hours is a really great amount to shoot for. And so if you're not getting 8 hours of sleep, let's talk and make sure that you can get a really good night's sleep. We want you to hydrate with half your body weight in ounces of water a day. And if that's too complicated, you can just drink 8 glasses and you're probably good to go. And meditate 20 minutes or deep breathe or just chill out to help restore your adrenal function. And then when you're done with the program, fill out that survey again, the questionnaire again, and see if it has improved, if your symptoms have improved on paper. After this program, we're going to transition to a healthy lifestyle program, which is the Supercharged method. And it is everything you need to stay healthy and be healthy. If you want more information, that is in a following presentation. I hope this was helpful and have a great day.